Pros, save more on the materials you need to get the job done, inside and out, at Lowe's. Right now, get 10% off in-stock Trex Naturals decking, now available in more styles. Plus, get 15% off select custom entry, interior, and storm doors. Then, we'll deliver it all straight to your job site to help keep your jobs moving. Get the brands pros trust, priced right, and ready when you need them. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 5/27. While supplies last. Selection varies by location.
We've often heard stories of Beauty and the Beast, man and cryptid falling in love. But today we're going to take a look at a story of a cryptid who has a hard time making love to the woman of his dreams. He has no arms. He has no legs. He has no circulatory system whatsoever. But he's still in love, and he'll do whatever it takes to make this woman his. And then we delve into the bizarre world of haunted sex toys. What happens when that object you love the most becomes charged with evil sexual energy? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Oh, you know what? No. Cut the track. This is the special love-making episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. Let's get something funky. Let's get something erotic going on here. No, not the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. There we go. Perfect. Listen to that groove. Listen to that funk. Yeah, I'm your host, Jason Carpenter, for today's Funkadelish love-making episode. I guess you're going to keep this gimmick up the whole episode? Probably. What's my normal intro? I totally forget once I'm thrown off script. All the stuff I normally say, I say right now, and I'm glad to have you guys here for this special episode. Get a little closer. Sit on my lap. Oh, yes. We listen to this funk music together, and it's going to be a great episode. It's our special love-making episode. Now, I will warn you guys up ahead. This episode is going to be very much like making love to me. It's going to be short and to the point. I'm not feeling great. My stomach's upset again. Also, a byproduct of having sex with me is me constantly complaining about how ill I am the whole time. But someone who never complains about how sick they are whenever they're making love to their beloved. Running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for Callum Frazier. Woohoo, yeah, look at him groove on in. He's being forced in by our security. He doesn't want to be in this episode. Come sit in my lap, Callum. Callum, longtime Patreon supporter. That is why he is going to be our captain, our pilot for this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or the merch store, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, I want to say this. I threw it on at the end of yesterday's episode, but May 29th, we're going to have our Dead Rabbit Radio movie night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's for our Patreon members. The link will be dropped in our Patreon. That's for all Patreon members, paid or free tier. And then the following morning, May 30th, we're going to have our Dead Rabbit Radio movie morning. That is available to everyone. You don't have to be a member of the Patreon. That is at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We watch a bunch of short horror films, so you can kind of pop in and pop out. There's no big commitment for you guys, but I hope to see you guys there. May 29th, May 30th, Dead Rabbit Radio movie weekend. I'll put more details in the show notes. Okay, Callum, let's go ahead and get this party started. Let's start off. What's our sexiest vehicle? Ooh, I got one. Brand new vehicle. Callum, I'm going to go ahead and toss you a pair of the Carpenter cuffs. Pink fuzzy handcuffs. It's not a vehicle. Jason, I can't think of anything more dangerous than meeting you and one of the first things you say is, here, put on these handcuffs. Everyone glide on into a pair of these Carpenter cuffs as Callum makes sure they're all nice and tight. And then walks us out of the Radio Command. We're all falling over, our hands are handcuffed behind our back. Callum's like, ooh, yes, my fetish, watching handcuffed people fall. Callum marches us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way to Chile. Jingle jangle, Jingle jangle. Jingle jangle. Ooh, yeah. Jason, you're off to a really bad start. I know you said you want this episode to be short. I imagine there's a lot of editing going to be done, a lot of bad jokes that get taken out probably. We're headed all the way down to Chile. Specifically, we're headed to Lake Cucawa. That's in southern Chile. And we're going way back in time. Way back in time for this story. Probably, I don't know, 1500, 1600, something like that. Maybe a little bit further. But we're going back to the time of myth, the time of legend. We're headed all the way back to take a look at this legend that to this day people are still trying to figure out what exactly was going on, because there's a lot of people that go, it's not a myth, like it actually happened. Sure, it happened a long time ago, but it's possible it could happen again. It could even happen to you if you lived in southern Chile or were visiting the area. A long time ago at Lake Cucawa, when spring would turn to summer, the still water of the lake would start to get warm and stuff, because the sun is closer to the earth, right? Isn't that how summer works? And, frogs would start to frolic, and parakeets would be jumping up and down in trees. It's summertime. Everyone's ready to party. But nearby Lake Cucawa was a cave. A cave that went so deep, some people say it led to the bowels of the earth itself. Possibly a passage to unknown civilizations. In this area, in this time period, because again, it's not like 800 BC, it's in relatively recent times, they had a pretty booming population. You had a lot of villages in the area. They appreciated the beauty of the lake. Also, there's a lot of fish and stuff like that. You can go and grab yourself fish. It's super close to the Pacific Ocean. It's just like a mile or two outside of the Pacific Ocean. So it's a very active biosphere. So you had a lot of people in the area. But back to this cave. The first morning of summer, the kids in the village are like, come on, Billy, let's go to the lake. Let's go to the lake. I'm coming, Billy says as he walks out of his house. Come on, Billy. They're running down to the lake. And they're splashing each other with water, but that's not why they're there. They're like, well, yay, okay, yeah, we're splashing ourselves with water, but what we're really waiting for is that. And the little kid points and shows Billy the mouth of the cave. He goes, watch over there, Billy, watch. And that's when this beautiful woman, jaw-droppingly gorgeous woman, walks out of the mouth of the cave. Imagine the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your life, then multiply her by 3 or 4. And that's this woman. She has 3 or 4 heads. She's all this monstrosity, all these arms. Billy's like, my fetish is that. I didn't know what a fetish was until I saw it crawl out of the cave. The most beautiful woman you could ever even imagine to see walks out of the mouth of the cave. And they're like, oh, takes the boy's breath away. It takes the girls' breath away. They were there as well. It takes the men and the women of the village. Even a little squirrel goes, ah. The beauty of this woman is so intense. And, just so you lady listeners don't think I'm being superficial, she also had a great personality. Everyone in the area loved her. But she would walk out of the cave. She didn't really interact with anyone, but they knew who she was. She'd come out the first morning of summer. She would begin swimming in the lake. Now, this wasn't the first time she had done this, as it happened many, many times before. And it wasn't just that the locals had fallen in love with her. Something deep within the water felt a stirring inside. But it has no heart to beat. It has no eyes to see. It has no limbs to hold, but it has a soul to love. This is the Curamilla. The Curamilla is a massive chunk of gold. Raw, shining, pure gold. And it lived at the bottom of the lake. And there it stayed until the beautiful woman would walk out of the cave. And at dawn, that first summer day, she would swim in the lake, and the Caramilla would rise up from the bottom of the lake until it created its own island. This giant chunk of gold would rise up and then just silently sit in the middle of the lake, waiting for the woman to get done swimming, because after she had done her laps, she would crawl on top of the gold stone and rest in the warm summer sun. After a while, the woman would then jump off of the gold mountain man, right? This big chunk of gold, the Caramilla. She would jump back into the water. She would swim back to the shore and walk into the cave. She did this every morning at dawn for every summer. She'd walk out of the cave, she'd go swimming, and the Caramilla would be there waiting for her to once again sun herself on its golden flesh. And when the woman wasn't swimming, the Caramilla would still just be there in the middle of the lake. And any of the villagers who were along the shoreline, that entire summer, just by being in the mere presence of the Caramilla, no one dared to swim out there. But just by being on the shore, you would have luck and happiness. Your family would be healthy. You would be prosperous. Everyone in the area would have the best summer ever. And that was the power of the Caramilla. It would reward, it was just like so happy, right? It's elated that it gets to be so close to such a beautiful woman that out of all the places she could have rested, she decided to rest on him. And he was truly in love with her. And he's so elated. You've probably been in that situation. Maybe you were the person where you're at work and someone is so happy, like authentically happy and joyous, that you can't help but also feel good yourself. And that was the relationship between the Caramilla and the villagers. And this went on for so long, this happened for so many summers, that it became very famous in the region. You started having people come from other villages farther away to spend their summer here, so they could also not only see this odd sight, this woman that nobody knew come out of this cave that they knew was so deep, they'd never really been able to explore it all the way. Not only to see that, because that was odd enough, but also to see this giant chunk of gold floating in the middle of the lake. And then right when you would get there, you'd be like, oh my god, the stories are true. I feel fantastic. I feel so happy. I feel so content. Thank you, Caramilla. Thank you. This went on for many, 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 many summers. Because the legend grew. More and more people were like, yo, we got to check out this Lake Kukawa. Heard it's pretty chill. But of course, the people in the region were happy with just feeling so fantastic for 3 months. People who didn't grow up in the region, people who were outsiders, all they heard was gold. There's this giant chunk of gold in the middle of the lake and nobody ever goes there except some woman swimming there? Oh, dude, I'm going to get me a piece of that. No, I'm going to get me all of that. So there was this guy, let's go ahead and call him Brad. Brad lived in Chile, and he hears these stories. And just dollar signs are banging around in his head. And he goes, I got to get me some of that gold. I'm going to get all of it. And he came up with the perfect plan. Because, you would hear, it wasn't that they just thought, oh, there was an island of gold. The legend was like, it's not like you can go out there with a pickaxe, dude. There's something magical about it. It can obviously float around. We don't know if it'll gobble you up or turn you into a leprechaun and make you its slave. We don't know. There's something mystical about it. And Brad goes, I actually got the perfect plan. We know that it shows up when the woman is there and it leaves when the woman stops coming. Why don't I kidnap the woman? Basically hold her for ransom. Because it would make sense, right? The ransom is you. I have this woman, and if you really want her, you'd be like a maniac, right? If you saw a guy yelling at a rock, he's holding a woman, he's like, listen, rock, I've had enough of your nonsense. I'll trade you this woman, but you're my prisoner forever. He goes, I'm gonna grab the girl and hold her for ransom, and then get the rock and get as much gold as I can carry. I mean, it's also a magical rock. It's floating around. Obviously, maybe it has legs or something like that. It can at least help me by walking itself. He goes, I'm gonna kidnap this chick and take control of the chunk of gold. Now, he doesn't tell anyone this, right? Because people would be like, no, this is like a community thing. We all benefit from this being here. Don't do anything. He doesn't tell anyone this. He's an outsider anyways. Who would he tell? He ends up traveling to the region. And he gets there right before that first morning swim, the first day of summer. He goes, okay, I know where the cave's at. It's all part of the story. I'm going to go near the mouth of the cave. I'm going to hide in the bushes. And when the woman comes out, I'm going to jump her. And then I'm tie her up, put on some carpenter cuffs. And then I'll... like, here's the thing. It's not like she can swim if she's tied up. How is he going to talk to the rock? It's not the most thought out plan, but this is his plan. So he does that. He travels to the region. He gets there before the first day of summer. He hides in the bushes right outside of the cave. And he goes, yes, step one of my plan is almost complete. Brad's hiding in the bushes, and then the sun begins to crest over the landscape. It is dawn, the first day of summer. The beautiful woman emerges from the cave, and Brad is hunched down in the bushes. And right when he's about to leap out and attack her, he catches a glimpse of her and immediately falls in love. All of his greed is gone. All he wants is her. Not as a prize, not as a prisoner, but as a lover. He immediately falls in love with her. And he walks out of the bushes and he goes, you come here often? He's like, I knew that pickup line would work on you, because you do, you get it? Hi, I'm Brad. And he extends his hand out and she's like, oh, hi, I don't know. I was going to give her a name, but I think it sounds more mystical if she doesn't have one. Right? Yes, Jason. You named all these indigenous people Brad and Billy. I think you've kind of thrown the concept of names out the window around episode 2 or 3 of the podcast. Her name is the most beautiful name you could ever imagine times 4. It's 4 times as long with all the letters jumbled up. He goes, I'm Brad. Oh my God, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And she takes a look at this young man. And, she's a young woman. He's attractive. I mean, at the very least, he's bold. He's trying to kidnap you. Women like, forward-thinking men of action, even if it involves them possibly kidnapping you and holding you for ransom to get a giant chunk of gold. They see each other, they start talking, and she falls in love with him. She goes out for her swim as normal, but Brad's waiting back on the shoreline for her. And they keep getting to know each other and talking, and the Curamilla is floating out in the lake as normal. But when the sun sets that day, dawn begins again. The beautiful woman swims out, lays on the Curamilla, but then goes back to the shoreline to hang out with Brad. And eventually, just one day out of so many other days, nothing notable about it to anyone in the area or to the Curamilla itself, but one summer day at dawn, as the Curamilla is waiting there in the middle of the lake, the beautiful woman is not there. She didn't emerge from the cave. She didn't step into the water. She didn't go for her swim. She didn't lay her body across this golden creature in love with her. No. She left with Brad. And the story goes that Brad and this beautiful woman traveled the world, madly in love with each other, and went on many, many, many romantic escapades. But the Curamilla just sat there, in the lake that summer. And then when it realized that this woman was not only gone, but was never going to return, it sank to the depths of the lake, and it has not been seen since. It may not have been a living creature the way we think of them as organic, blood, muscle, bones, flesh. It may not have been an organic creature, but that does not mean it did not have a heart to break. This is a really interesting story. Like I said recently, I've really kind of been on a Chilean mythology kick. It's super fascinating because, again, it's a myth and a legend. People talk about it like that. But people are still actively looking for the Curamilla. It's recent enough in history. That's why I think it was like 1500s. Maybe even 1600s, something like that. It's recent enough in history that people think that it could still be there. And there are some interesting parts of the story that are verifiable in a way. First off, that cave is a known cave in the area. You can go there. And up until 1960, you could go as deep into that cave as you were willing to go. People in the area, up until 1960, I mean, this is almost within our lifetime. I was born in 76. You could just go for, I don't want to say days, but I mean, that was the story, right? It led to the inner earth. And at the very least, it probably led underneath the Pacific Ocean. This whole area is so close to the Pacific Ocean, and there's tons of rivers moving in and out of the area. This cave originally kind of ran alongside of this river that led into the Pacific Ocean. So at the very least, maybe not inner earth, but could you imagine walking into a cave on land, and now you're walking 2-3 miles underneath the Pacific Ocean? And it goes even further than that. Locals had been in that cave for a long time. They just go, I don't want to keep going. It's kind of spooky down there. I mean, it might lead to an ancient civilization full of beautiful women. But let's turn around. But in 1960, there was a big earthquake in southern Chile. And it collapsed. Not the entrance to the cave. You can still go into the entrance of the cave and you can still go back a bit, but no further. The earthquake actually sealed in the part of the cave that in 1959 you could walk. I mean, really, that's so within our lifetime. It's not even a myth. You could just walk by there. That huge earthquake sealed the entrance to whatever was down there. Like, you could go into the entrance of the cave, but no further because of this huge cave-in. So that's kind of an interesting detail. The Lake Kukawa, isn't that deep. It's like, I think, 80 feet deep. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's an 8-story building. I wouldn't want to be down there. But it's not so deep you couldn't go and explore it. People have tried to find the Curamilla, and I don't know if they've come out with like equipment, mini subs, or if they've just been swimming and snorkeling down there. No one could find a piece of it. No one can find any trace of it. And what's fascinating, I mentioned this on yesterday's episode, or it might have been Tuesday's episode, I don't remember. But in Chile, you have 2 different types of shaman that still exist today. Chile was actually the location of the last witch trial, like modern witch trial in human history. I think it was in the 1920s. We covered it on the podcast, where people were accused of being sorcerers and they were brought before a court of law. Like an actual witch trial, not people in town hanging somebody because they think all their shoes are missing somewhere deep within Scotland in 1952. It's just like a mass hysteria. This one, you had magistrates, you had lawyers, and they were putting all of these shaman, all these sorcerers on trial. I'll put that episode in the show notes, but they're still active today. You have 2 types. You have the good ones and the bad ones. The bad ones are called the Calc, and the good ones are called the Machi. And the difference between the 2 is that the Machi use their abilities to help anyone, and if they get paid, sure, that's fine. It helps, kind of keep the candles on. But the Calc, those are shaman who simply made the mistake of caring a little too much about money. Not that they started off purely evil. They started off as good shaman. And they started going, well, maybe I do want a little bit extra. Maybe I do want some new shoes. I have shoes that I get at Goodwill. They're used. And those are fine, but maybe it's a small shift between the two. But once you become a Kalk, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, you become just more and more evil. You start using your abilities for evil. You gain access to different powers. The spiritual energies you work with, the spiritual entities you work with, also become corrupted. It's really fascinating. And so you have these two groups. The Kalk shaman in the area to this day are trying to find the Kuramilla because they're like, it's gold. It's this giant piece of gold. I mean, the fact that it's sentient, the fact that it can think and float, that's fine and all, but I'm still going to carve it up. I'm going to use it because it's money. But the Machi also go, we're going to carve it up, most likely. Right? If it's that big, and it's at the bottom of the lake, and maybe it's sentient, maybe it's dead, who knows? But if the Machi have said, we would actually, if we found it, we'd probably take a chunk off of it as well. Not to sell it, though. The Machi say, let's say you got an ounce of this Kuramilla, just a little piece, and you took it back to your village. Think about the blessings that would be bestowed upon anyone who even entered your village. This beautiful piece of this sad creature may still retain its original power. So if I could get a chunk of it, I could take it home, and everyone in my entire town would feel the happiness, the contentment, the joy that the entire region once felt many, 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 many years ago. I think I really dig that story, right? And it's interesting because they are still looking for it today for those different reasons. You could go, the Mounties are the good guy. Why are they going to carve him up? He's all down there. He's like, oh, I already have my heart broken. Now I'm getting chipped away at. Well, I mean, because you probably couldn't lift the whole thing up. Interesting, though, right? I can't really recall a time we've come across a rock cryptid. We've come across rock aliens, the Conformers. We've talked about them on this show. I kind of wondered if that movie Hail Mary was going to be soft disclosure about the Conformers, because that was also a silica-based entity. But I thought the movie was good. I thought the movie was good. It might have been telling us, trying to make the Conformers are all cuddly, but whatever. I did enjoy it. Rock-based cryptids, and what's interesting, it's almost not even a cryptid, but it is sentient. It's just a rock, a giant chunk of gold that can float up and down, and fell in love. I mean, that really is probably the most living thing anyone can do. It's to fall in love, to admire something. Whether it's a squirrel looking at a nut going, I'm going to eat you up, yummy. Or a man hiding in the bushes, planning to kidnap a woman and feeling his heart skip a beat. Love. If anything, that made the rock just as human as the rest of us. The Kuramilla had a heart, it fell in love, but like so many love stories, it ended in heartbreak and the descent into despair, which is where the Kuramilla may rest to this day. Fascinating story. That was a story that I read pretty recently, and I was like, I want to tell this one on my podcast. I think it's weird, and I think it's cool, and it might be true. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, Callum Fraser. Let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world. Famous Carpenter Copter, we're saying goodbye to Chile. Don't worry, Kuramilla. Kuramilla, don't be sad. Maybe you'll meet a beautiful woman again. Do you have Instagram? Did you get it? Gram, because you're like a mineral that can be weighed in grams and stuff? Jason, please edit that out. Please edit that. The Kuramilla's like, I will rise to the surface if you edit that out. That was a terrible joke. I'm leaving it in. Kuramilla, though, I hope you do rise to the surface. You sound like a pretty chill dude. I'm trying to think of more rock-based puns. Oh, buddy, so you might want to check out Instagram, but stay away from Grindr. Just grinding them up like a rock. Get it? Fine, whatever. Let's go move on to you want me to talk about possessed sex toys, okay? I was trying to spare you that. Give you a few more minutes of not that. Whatever I'm going to talk about, something different than that. Grinder. That is kind of funny though. But anyways, okay. So, Callum, let's go ahead and touch the keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving the Curamilla. We're saying goodbye to Chile. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Pervtown, USA? Jason, why is the address saved into your GPS? Hit number 1, it takes you right there. Pervtown, USA. The reason why we're here is that we got a couple different stories to talk about. And, what better place to talk about a subject? Look at all these houses. You see all these houses around? Each one of these houses is home to a pervert, but a pervert of a different stripe. And you may go, these people aren't perverts, Jason. They're just using sex toys. The sex toys are totally normal. And that is correct. You are right. However, normal sex town doesn't sound as exciting. And if I said this neighborhood was full of normal people, that's not exciting. Look at these perverts. Now let's go look through their windows without them knowing and call them perverts. We walk up to the first house and we see a young woman. Let's go ahead and call her Natalie. Natalie is sitting there in her house, and her friend is over. We'll call the friend Beth. And Beth goes, "Hey, Natalie, what's in the box?" And Natalie goes, "Oh, I'm glad that you asked. Because in this box right here is this great deal I got. You know how I'm always spending money on sex toys, and they're like $120, $200. Sex toys are very expensive for women. I don't know if you guys have shopped for those recently for women. They're very expensive, like stainless steel. Come on, dude. Anyways, they got motors and stuff in them. So they have to have safety regulations. So they cost more money to test them." She goes, "I'm always spending money on sex toys. Well, I got a great deal." Natalie opens up the box and shows Beth it's a box full of used sex toys. And she goes, "I got these for a steal. Look how cheap these things are. Look at these two vibrators, right? These normally cost me $80 each." She's juggling them. "But I got the whole box for $9.99. She actually didn't say how much she paid. But she's juggling these vibrators. Beth says, Stop. Now you might go, let's pause here for a second. You might go, "This story's ridiculous." We haven't got to the ghost stuff yet. And you're like, that's ridiculous. No one would buy used sex toys. In Sacramento, they used to have a huge donation drive called Toys for Tarts. And every year for Christmas, they would ask women to donate their used sex toys to Toys for Tarts, Tarts, like a saucy lady. And Toys for Tarts, I don't know if they're still in operation, but they were back then. You donate your used sex toys to Toys for Tarts, and then they would sterilize them. And then they would give them out to women in need. They said there's a lot of women who don't have enough money to buy sex toys. And that's true because, like I said, they're very expensive. They're very, very expensive. Give a man a Ziploc bag and some petroleum jelly and he'll figure something out, right? He'll start to call it Gladys and have a great time. But with a woman, it's like crazy, this stuff that they have to build. So, yeah, a lot of people take used sex toys. People do donate them, and other people will buy them at cheap or get them for free from nonprofits. Because it totally does make sense. As gross as it sounds, it does make sense. They're very expensive. They do meet a need. And, peanut butter and jelly it. Or petroleum jelly it. Peanut butter and petroleum jelly it. I have a sex toy. Not me. But this woman has a sex toy she's not using anymore. And maybe she's upgraded to the latest model. It's like a twin jet engine attached to it. And so this other one's more like a Cessna. She's going to donate this one to Toys for Tarts. They're going to clean it up. Because obviously, right, all you would need is one disease outbreak and your entire business model is shot. So it does make sense. People would buy a bunch of sex toys that were used because they're cheap. Now, Beth says what I think our initial response is that's disgusting. Why would you buy a bunch of used sex toys? And then, Natalie would basically say what I said. They're very expensive and, you get a good deal. Plus, I'm going to clean them. However, Beth, she posted this story online. She goes, my friend, she got this box of used sex toys that told her it was absolutely disgusting. She didn't think it was a big deal. And she goes, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but her life started to really go down hard. No pun intended. You go down south is what I meant to say, but her life really took a downhill turn. Better way to phrase it. Shortly after getting this box of sex toys, not like within a couple months, but in a year or two, she started developing this pretty bad drug habit, which led to her becoming homeless. And the last I heard, she was a prostitute. And Beth thinks that the box of used sex toys may have led to that. Not that she was using them so much. She's like, why am I doing this for free? I can make money doing this. Not like that. That there was something attached to the sex toys themselves that then attached themselves to Natalie. And as goofy as that premise is, it totally tracks. What have we been talking about for a couple weeks now? I actually need to stop covering it so much. I find the topic so interesting because it can happen to anyone. Not necessarily the used sex toys, but we've been doing a lot of cursed item stories past couple weeks. I find them fascinating. They can happen to anyone. We know that curses or spirits can be attached to items. We know a totally innocent person can come into possession of that item and then it affect them. When we talk about sex toys, we're taking something, and not like being all prudish about it, but it is a very intimate thing. And there is a lot of spiritual energy connected to the act of making love. That's why there is an entire subset of magic called sex magic. That's why there is an entire set of entities known as incubi or succubi or any of their culturally different yet power level same cousins around the world. There are so many entities that feed off human sexual energy that it would make sense. It would almost feel more likely that a sex toy could be imbued with negative sexual energy that is then passed from user to user than a normal item. What's interesting is that on the one hand, it probably, because it's such an intense energy. Think about what it would take to really create a cursed item. It's in your possession when you die. We covered that story a long time ago about like the haunted Hello Kitty doll in the backseat of the car where like the little girl died. I'll see if I can dig that episode up. That episode was really weird because it was all from the junkyard. Someone broke into the crashed car and stole the stuffed animal. And then the junkyard caught on video the guy returning it 2 days later. And then eventually they found the guy and he goes, yeah, it's causing all this haunted stuff. And it was a girl stuffed animal who died in that car. Put that episode in the show notes. Somebody holding something when they die, it's a object they love more than anything. That means the world to them. Something used in some sort of sinister way, the level would have to be pretty high to get it cursed. Or someone actually placing a curse, like actually speaking a spell onto an item. Those are all different ways you can curse an item. But think about how often those happen. And even then, not every item that is in that situation is cursed. A lot of people put curses on stuff and nothing happens because they don't know what they're doing anyways. On the flip side, because sexual energy can attract these entities into our life, it actually makes a lot of sense that sex toys would have a higher likelihood of getting possessed. It doesn't have to be your favorite sex toy. You don't even have to be using it when you die in that dildo factory explosion. It was just one of many sex toys you had, but negative energy attached to it. However, even though I was talking about stuff like Toys for Tarts, most people do not sell their used sex toys. Most people do not donate their used sex toys. They destroy them. They throw them in the trash. Or they just sit in the back of your closet for 8-9 years, unused. So even though the likelihood of negative energy being attached to a sex toy is higher, the chances of it being transmitted to somebody else is way, way lower. Because very rarely do these things get recycled. So it's interesting to think about it like that. higher chance of attracting, if a succubi or an incubi is entering your life, that would be the perfect item to infest. And it may have a negative impact on your life, not the multiple orgasms you're getting from the toy itself, but the closeness to that demon. And you may start to notice things are going wrong in your life. You may start to see these influences in your life. But the chances of you going, okay, time to recycle my giant dildo and taking it down to the flea market and then someone else getting it. You know what I mean? Like, the chances of it being passed on are very, very, very low. Let's take a look at another story. It's funny, when I was looking into this subject, there were a lot of reports, and I put them in the show notes so you guys can look at them. They do seem odd because they're all the same. However, these could all be explainable. There's a lot of reports of women, and even a man who said this happened to his wife. There's a lot of reports of people saying they'd be sitting in their house, and then all of a sudden, they'd hear this super loud vibration. And not only hear it, but feel it. One person said, I thought a train was coming. It felt like my entire room was shaking. The walls were humming, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I got up and I looked around, and then I found my vibrator in the bedroom dresser had turned itself on. Now, we all have stuff like that happen, right? I mean, not necessarily. For me, this happens to me a lot. When I travel, I carry portable beard trimmer. And a lot of times it's in my backpack, it's in my suitcase, and I'm traveling, and it'll turn on. It'll sound like a vibrator. So, I mean, obviously that's what I think that it is. I was like, no, it's not that. It's my beard trimmer. It is right next to my vibrator, but my vibrator didn't turn on. You think that's it, right? That's all. But the fact that all of these stories, I think there was 3 or 4 of them I put in the show notes, they were all told by different people across different areas, across different years. They said the type of vibrator I have isn't a push button. To turn it on, you have to do a certain thing, like a knob or a switch, as opposed to something that could accidentally get turned on. More than one account said it was at the highest setting possible, which means it would have to be shifted through. And every account was either someone like just sitting in the bedroom or laying in bed and the thing went off. It's not like they were rummaging through their drawer or anything like that. But even then, the account said it was louder and you could feel the vibration through the room way more than if you just turned it on and put it in the dresser and shut the dresser. That would not make the entire room hum. You wouldn't feel the walls vibrating. All of these accounts, and I didn't go into super detail with each one because they're all so similar, but it could just be that it's turned on accidentally. That stuff does happen. But the fact, the intensity of it that's what was notable about it. That's why they posted about it online. It's not just like, oh, my dildo turned on in the middle of the night. Well, dildos don't turn on. I mean, they have the hybrids nowadays, but my vibrator turned on in the middle of the night. That's not paranormal, but it was the fact that the sensation of the room humming, the loudness of it all. Some of it, Ian said, I tried replicating it. I put it in there. I was like trying to jostle stuff around, see if I could make it turn on if I moved even though they were nowhere near the dresser when it originally triggered. And you would be concerned, right? Because this is something that you're putting into your body. It's not like a cursed cuckoo clock that's sitting in your basement that every so often you swear you hear the sound of a man stomping around down there in heavy boots. This is something you're shoving inside of your body and leaving there for a duration of time. You want to know whether or not it's cursed. You want to know whether or not it's haunted because it's so close to you. But let's finish off this episode in this week with one more story here. It's funny, I said I wanted the episode to be short. Here we are. Here we are once again pushing an hour. But I have a ball doing the show. I don't feel great physically, but I have such a good time doing the show. Let's take a look at this story. And this is a story that actually inspired me to do this topic. It's July 2025. We're going to take a look at the story of this guy. We're going to call him Jackson. He posted this on the X board a while back. He said he likes to have sex with sex dolls. Inflatable sex dolls. Not those talk about expensive. Now a man can buy like a sex robot, for like $1,500 minimum. You're like, Jason, I don't know how you have an encyclopedic knowledge about ghosts, Chilean mythology, and the prices of sex toys. Not just how sex toys are in general, but how much they cost. And they're not even real robots. Let me rant a little more about that. They're not even real robots. They just lay there, but they go, "Oh, I love you, honey." "Oh, yeah," their lips move and stuff. Well, they talk. Their lips are moving because they're a sex toy, but also, like, you can talk to them and stuff like that. But anyways, at the end of the day, it's just an inert sex doll, but it's synthetic that feels real. At least that's what the ads say. It feels real. They jiggle when you slap them. The boobs and the butt, not the face. I'm not a monster. But also, I would argue it would be a little... You see these toys, and it's like the upper torso of a human woman. And then it goes down to her butt. And it has no thighs, and nothing above the head, nothing above the neck, and no arms. It's just like this torso. And I'm sure the jiggle physics are absolutely spot on. It still looks like a serial killer. It still looks like something a serial killer would own. But, if you have it and you use it and it's great, fine. That's not something I'm going to judge you on. I'm not going to think you're a serial killer if you have that. But it is odd looking. Anyways, Jackson doesn't even have that, right? He doesn't have the tantally slap the booty, jiggle physics, super expensive sex toy. He has a literal inflatable sex doll. The thing that was all the rage in the 70s, but now it's pretty much relegated to like frat parties or something you blow up and you sneak into your buddy's bedroom and you start hitting him with it in the middle of the night. I won't comment on whether or not I actually did that. But you're like, did you use it first, Jason? Never mind, don't answer that. Inflatable sex doll. And he goes, I used to have an inflatable sex doll. I love inflatable sex dolls. But I recently had a house fire, and one of the casualties of it was my inflatable sex doll that I enjoyed making love to. So he went and got a new one. But he said, ever since I got this new one, something seems off. Something seems wrong. When he climbs on top of it to begin to have sex with this inflatable woman, he's looking right into her eyes. See, the $500 version doesn't even have eyes. It's just the torso. He's looking right into this inflatable woman's eyes. And instead of seeing a painted set of eyes looking back at him, well, he does see that. He does see a painted set of eyes looking back at him. He says the eyes seem alive now. Something underneath the illustrated eyes. Something living. Something inside of this sex doll. He continues to have sex with it, right? He's not going to stop banging this piece of plastic or mylar. What are they made out of? Vinyl. He's still having sex with it, but when he looks at it, he looks in its eyes, it just feels different. It feels alive in some way. But then he finishes and dismounts this inflatable woman. I would assume try not to look at it. I would assume that. I would hope he washed it. But anyways. And then, I don't know how often this guy uses it. A couple hours later, he's watching Heather Graham do some ad for Oil of Olay or whatever, and he gets turned on again. So he has to climb on top of this inflatable woman again and start having sex with it. And he's looking into her eyes, and he's like, there's something wrong with this. Not having sex with an inflatable woman, but there's something wrong with this one. I can see it. I can see something. Something staring back at me. He goes, it started to give him a real creepy feeling. This inflatable sex doll. He also said around this time he starts to experience what he calls, quote, generic paranormal activity. Starts seeing shadow people around the house. Hearing voices in other rooms calling out for him when he's the only one home. Random items being knocked off of shelves. He starts to have nightmares. And he asks this question. Quote, is my sex doll genuinely possessed by some pervy-ass demon or whatever? Unquote. And the answer is probably. I mean, based off of the information he gave us, that's not a bad guess. If it's just one or two of those things, if he started seeing shadow people and stuff was flying off the wall, or getting knocked off the shelf, not to be overdramatic, knocked off the shelf, I would never equate the sex doll with it. I would just go, oh no, you probably have a ghost. The question you would ask is, has anything new entered your home lately? But even then, new, if he goes, well, I bought a sex doll, and my question would be, was it new or used? He goes, new, of course. What are you, a maniac? And I was like, just making sure. We don't really think of new items having curses, although they can. We've talked about that before on the show. We may start looking at other objects that had entered the house or things that he might have encountered that he somehow brought home. But the fact that it correlates to not just around the time he got the sex doll, but getting a weird feeling from the sex doll, watching its eyes, looking at it, and realizing there's something off about it. That's really what does angle you down. And the idea that, and again, I never really thought about this topic until I started going into it, the idea of a sex doll being genuinely cursed is very, very high. It's all of your sexual energy pouring into this thing. You're using this toy in a very intimate moment. It's a very sacred moment. In a lot of cultures, the point of orgasm is a sacred event. And if you have any negative energy attached to you, or if you've attracted any negative energy in your life, or you're generating negative energy just because you're in a negative space right now, you could be charging that object. Most of the time, it's just going to fizzle out because there's no spirit behind it. But sometime in the right moment, an entity could enter that object. It's a door. It's a pathway. It's using your sexual energy. It may actually be attracted by your sexual energy as well in the first place. And then moving into that object and taking up residence. And staying there. Now, depending on how powerful it is, the idea of like ghosts and goblins entering your life, it's exceedingly rare. There's more of a likelihood of you leaving a negative mark on something and then that object being charged negatively by you or someone in your vicinity than an actual malignant spirit entering it. And if it is just negative energy that has no intent behind it, it will just fizzle out over time, generally speaking. But whether you're charging it or whether some evil entity, some demon, some spirit is charging it, is possessing that object, it makes a lot of sense that these objects would be possessed, and it also makes a lot of sense of why we wouldn't know. One, because they're not passed around, they're not family heirlooms, they're not grandma's favorite silverware set that now when it's in this new house of the son-in-law she never liked, they go into the kitchen, there's always a broken dish on the floor. Right? It just goes in the trash. You don't even destroy it symbolically. We talk about how to get rid of a cursed item. People say burn it. It's a bad idea. We don't know what will happen. A lot of times people will just bury it or throw it away if they think it's cursed. That's not a terrible idea. And I think that's where most sex toys end up. So they usually don't get passed down. If you have a haunting in your house, you may not be thinking it's that new dildo you bought. And you're still using it, and then eventually you want to upgrade, and you toss it in the trash, and then the haunting stops. You don't even really make the connection between the two, because why would you? The other reason why you wouldn't hear a lot about this is that even if you did think you were having a possessed sex toy, you're most likely not talking about it on Reddit. Or really anywhere. Probably not to your friends. You're probably not doing a speech at the ghost conference. Because the first thing you have to do is that, one, you have to admit that you own sex toys. Two, you have to admit that you use sex toys. There is a stigma to that. I mean, it's just masturbation with extra steps. It's not really that big of an issue. There's a stigma to that. So even if you were encountering this issue, you may not feel comfortable talking about it. You may not even feel comfortable reaching out for help when you need it the most. So the next time you're feeling in the mood, the next time you want to grab that sex toy and start using it, just remember what your good pal Jason said. I want you to imagine my voice. I want you to hear my voice in your ears as you begin to pleasure yourself. Be careful. Be careful because like Jason, I don't buy used sex toys. Half of the story didn't apply to me. But still, you never know. A ghost, a goblin, or ghoul can hide many places. But now I think because of this episode, we learned one of those places could be inside your most sensitive places. You're like, Jason, you didn't mention any ghouls in my vagina? What are you talking about? Yeah, okay, listen, I'm running out of time to end this episode. I have to get to work. It's the next morning and I'm recording the last 5 minutes of it. Just be careful is what I'm saying. Don't buy used sex toys. Toys for Tarts doesn't exist anymore. I tried finding them online. Shocker. Nobody wants to take free, used sex toys, even women in need. Even if it's your own toy you've owned this entire time, and you're nodding your head, you're like, yes, that applies to all of them. Yeah, I know, but still, be careful because it could also be possessed just by all the sexual energy you're putting out by using it. Not saying it's not fun, not saying you should stop using them altogether, but just be aware that toy that is giving you so much pleasure, there's a rare chance it could be opening a gateway for a sexual demon to enter into your life. So I guess I'm still gonna masturbate. Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you not to do that. Just saying, be careful. But I am looking at my watch and I do have to get to work. Really do appreciate you guys listening. Really, really brings me a lot of joy. Sexual joy when I look at the downloads. Ooh, Poppy. That's what I say every time I open up my pod status account to see where the episodes are doing well at. deadrabbitradio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at facebook.com/deadrabbitradio. TikTok is @deadrabbitradio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Sorry if this episode ends up being a little bit late. But I love you guys. Have a great weekend. I'll see you soon.